proudly sponsored by Premier Guns.
I enjoy it very much. I have a great passion for the work I'm doing right now, so
and is
I'm
it
really
more
happy.
the legal side of things, or were you a shooter beforehand?
Well, my stepson is a gamekeeper, so I don't shoot much, but I go beating for him, etc. And my great passion is working my dogs.
Yeah, and do you think that they've brought you in-house because of the legal costs of all the cases, which, let's face it, BASC, along with others, not just BASC, have been fighting on our behalf as interested parties? Do you think they've just sort of taken the plunge and thought, do you know what, we're going to have our own in-house specialist, being you?
Yeah, but I think it's twofold. So one element of my work is certainly to support BASC and the other sister organizations in all the challenges which are related to shooting activities. Secondly, we also try to target law reform and policy reform, because that's where these challenges originate from. And our legal system in environmental law is heavily influenced by European legislation.
Then I've got a question.
Right.
As you are aware, a lot of people are talking about lead. BASC are talking a lot about steel, let's be honest, that's where it's come from. Now, do you think, as we're going through a voluntary phase out, and people tend to forget this, is it your belief as an environmental lawyer that it would require primary legislation to instill a full-on lead ban with royal assent?
Oh, well, it probably depends a little bit on the European position, to be honest. I mean, it's thinkable that Europe will decide to ban lead completely.
But we're not in Europe now, so why would that affect us?
Our habitats regulation still requires us to comply with the Habitats Directive and the Birds Directive, which is European legislation.
No.
So if case law emerges in Europe, it's likely that that will translate into our legal system as well.
And how near is that? How much is Europe talking about it? Because Europe's got a lot on, we all have.
That's pure speculation, but I personally would expect that lead shots will be banned at one point in the
And will it be primary legislation that requires it? And royal assent? It's got to be, hasn't it? They can't just pass it through on a 10-minute.
I expect that will happen. But as I said, there can be other influences linked to European protected site, for example. But on European protected site, in all fairness, lead is not usually used anyway, if it's wetlands or whatever.
I'd heard a lot. When I first came into this, BASC were in a very difficult position. They're unpopular with people on the field over this steel and lead thing. I'm not, letting any cats out of the bag with that one.
Yeah.
And I just sort of listened and looked from the sidelines. They said that they'd worked with a number of cartridge manufacturers. I've questioned most of them. Can't find out who it is. Being a members organisation, I don't feel that any of the members wanted this so-called lead ban. And I think they feel that everybody's ramming steel down their throats. And I would say that's probably the core of the issue from what I've seen. But technically and ballistically, steel can't be as good. There are trade-offs. There just are.
So on lead, I'm not a firearms expert or ballistic expert at all. The law, it's a guess what the law will say, so yeah. I can't predict it. There will be a lead ban at one point. The shooting industry is under pressure if they can't sell their game birds to game dealers. So that's from a legal point of view, that's all I can tell you on that. But if you want to, I'm not the right person to talk about lead shots, I think, in that, because that's not my expertise.
No, that's okay. So tell me what kind of court cases and legal things you envisage coming up. Because let's face it, we're doing well. We're doing well with the Packham thing. They're creating a load of noise. They're not doing themselves any favours. They're, quite frankly, I've said this before, they're ripping people off. You know, old ladies think they're helping birds, but they're not really helping birds. They're funding hold-ups in the legal system, and just wastes of time, really.
Yeah, I mean, what they're doing is, in my opinion, slightly disingenuous, because they are launching campaigns and legal challenges under the banner of environmentalism, which really are just campaigns against the shooting industry.
Yeah, it's class war. If you ask me, I'd say it's class war.
Yeah, I agree with you. And, you know, you can be against shooting by all means, but then you have to declare what your interests are rather than dressing it up as something which it isn't. And if you look at wild justice, they never go against the real big dirty industries like the extraction industry or fashion industry. I don't necessarily want to reveal in which areas, because I don't want to give them any fodder to think about. But, you know, similar areas than what we've seen, I think, might be discussed in the future. The release of game birds, pest and predator control will certainly be an issue.
BASC are on it, aren't they?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
You're
BASC and the sister organizations, you know, it's not BASC alone. We have very strong sister organizations. We usually work together as interested parties.
Yeah.
We have a good legal team. So yeah, we are prepared.
It's good to know. It's good to know.
Yeah.
So what advice would you give to people? Are you available to members if they have an issue, say they set up a shoot and there's a complaint or there's some kind of a problem? Are you available to members like that?
They should probably go through the regional offices, but if there is a legal issue, it will internally then come to me. So that's probably the best avenue for members to deal with issues.
There's going to be a big boom in the shooting of rooks and crows now with the new general licenses. Are we going to see a whole new sport come out in behalf of conservation? Are there going to be black days like nobody's business?
No, absolutely not.
Okay.
So the general license debate is, I find it an unfortunate one. We are talking about bird species which are in the European legislation on the quarry list. So the corvids, they are quarry species. So in most European countries, during the open season, you can shoot as many crows and rooks as you like. Now, I'm not advocating to just randomly shoot crows and rooks. You have to adhere to the conditions in the general licenses. But in the last few years, they've got really, really complicated, which is not necessary. We protect corvids to the detriment of ground nesting birds.
Everything else will go.
I find it a very unfortunate.
There'll be nothing to eat. Eventually, they'll have eaten everything, and they won't be able to sustain their own population. Yeah,
so it's an unfortunate debate. It really is. It really is. And it's a populist debate. You know, nobody looks at the bigger picture here, the science behind it. It's a populist debate to go after the shooting industry, to stir the population.
Stand up for controlling the gull population and the crow population in the name of conservation. Is that going to be one of your biggest battles? Because it's one of the biggest battles that this country's birds are facing, isn't it?
Oh, well, yeah, pest and predator control is definitely very high on my agenda. Certain gull species are potentially declining. We have some problems with finding good evidence on bird counts, for example. So bird counts are not always reliable. But yeah, pest and predator control, which will be attacked in the future more, is definitely very high on my list.
Yeah, we need to be attacking it now, really, and saying that it's not enough, because it just isn't. You know, it is out of control, isn't it?
Yeah, no, I am looking at law and policy reform options, avenues. We have sent in a white paper to Lord Benyon's working group in the House of Lords to reform the habitat regulations, because very often the habitat regulations are one of the blockers. And what we suggest is not in any way a weakening of environmental law. I want to make that very clear.
Okay, yeah.
It suggests law reform which make the habitats regulations more effective and more workable, so that we can thrive to an end goal, which is, you know, an environmental benefit. And the same, if you look at legislation, we have the new Environment Act 2021, which sets species abundance targets by 2030. So we need to make sure that we can conserve all our species. If you look at the species in steepest decline, it's farmland birds and waders. Now, waders, they benefit from pest and predator control in the uplands, for example. Farmland birds benefit from more connected hedgerows, woodlands, etc., which you find on shooting estates. So the shooting industry can play an important role for these targets, but they have to be accepted and seen as that by the regulators. I think that is one of my...
I think you're going to be absolutely great, Marnie, and we're lucky to have you. We're going to see what happens, and keep me posted on how things are going, and keep in touch.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thanks for joining me today. Is there anything else that you wanted to add in particular?
No, I don't think so. I think, really important for me is that we can show the benefit, conservation, environmental benefits of the shooting industry, that we can get out of that entrenched debate which we have, which is really not useful to anybody. And that we can get more acceptance from the regulator to see, you know, what we are doing, how we are doing it, why we are doing it, and what the end effect is for the environment.
From BASC, because obviously it's been the laws that have been killing them, along with the non-laws of the voluntary ban. So yeah, I think it's a great move. You're there full time working on this, yeah?
Yes, I am. Yeah,
brilliant.
Absolutely.
Thanks,
more
Marnie,
than full time.
Get on. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Bye-bye.
Bye.